Leave her, Sergeant. That's a direct order. She's no longer our concern. The command, tinny and distant through his helmet's comms, was crystal clear. Sergeant Jake Morrison stood over the wounded alien queen, his rifle held ready. All around them, the grand hall of the Vithari Citadel was a wreck of shattered crystal and fallen banners. His squad was pulling back, their boots crunching on debris as they followed their orders. Jake knew the logical choice. He knew the safe choice. His duty was to the Terran Expeditionary Force, the same force that had been at war with the Vithari for a decade. But as he looked down at the ethereal, bleeding figure of Queen Ara, her own royal guards completely gone, he knew he wasn't going to make it. So how did a loyal soldier end up defying his own command? For that, we have to go back 2 hours. 2 hours earlier, the assault on the Citadel was in full swing. It was supposed to be a lightning-fast raid to capture or kill the Vithari leadership and finally end the war. Jake's squad had a secondary mission: secure the lower archives. But the battle had gone completely sideways. A third party, brutal raiders known only as the Kresh, tore through both Terran and Vithari lines, turning the whole assault into a chaotic free-for-all. Jake's squad found themselves pushed back, fighting through corridors they'd just cleared when they stumbled into the throne room. It was a scene of absolute carnage. Kresh marauders lay dead, but so did members of the Queen's Royal Guard. And in the middle of the room, slumped against her shattered throne, was Queen Ara. Her shimmering, armored robes were torn, and a deep gash wept iridescent blue blood. Of her famous protectors, the 7 crimson-scaled warriors sworn to defend her to their last breath, there was no sign. They hadn't died defending her. They had run. They chose their own skins over their sacred vow. To the Vithari, there's no greater dishonor. To Jake, who'd seen his own friends die for each other over far less, it was just disgusting. Queen Ara's large amber eyes, clouded with pain, found his. There was no hatred in them, just a profound, soul-deep weariness and the sting of betrayal. She was the enemy, sure, but in that moment she was just someone left to die by those she trusted most. That's when more Kresh showed up, drawn by the scent of royal blood. And that's when Jake's commander gave the order to retreat and leave her to her fate. "Sergeant, do you copy?" "I said leave her!" The voice crackled again, sharp with impatience. Jake keyed his comm. "Negative, command." "I can't do that." He flicked the selector on his rifle to full auto. His squad paused at the doorway, turning back. "Go," Jake said over their local channel. "That's an order." They looked at him, then at the advancing Kresh, and they went. The heavy blast door hissed shut, leaving him alone. He wasn't Sergeant Morrison of the TEF anymore. He was just a man standing between a wounded queen and a dozen heavily armed killers. He was her last guard. The fight was brutal and short. Jake was from Earth, a high-gravity death world that tends to bake resilience right into your bones. He used the environment to his advantage, flipping a heavy crystalline table for cover and funneling the Kresh into a kill zone. He was outnumbered, but his training was better. When the last Kresh fell, the throne room was silent, except for his own ragged breaths and the Queen's shallow ones. He approached her cautiously. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "We need to move." Ara looked at him, disbelief fighting the pain in her eyes. "You are human," she rasped, her voice like broken glass. "My enemy, why?" "Because leaving someone behind isn't an option," he said quietly. "Not for me." He offered her a hand. After a long pause, she took it. Her grip was weak, but her scales felt cool against his skin. Getting out of the Citadel was a total nightmare. Ara, despite her injury, knew the palace's secret ways like the back of her hand. She guided him through forgotten passages and dusty service tunnels that weren't on any Terran maps. He provided the muscle, half carrying her when she stumbled, his weapon always at the ready. They were a strange sight, the hated human soldier and the betrayed alien monarch, sneaking through the guts of her own fallen kingdom. They found a temporary safe spot in an old hydroponics bay, a place of silent, overgrown beauty. The air was thick with the scent of alien soil and damp leaves. For the first time, they had a moment to breathe. Jake used his medkit to clean and dress her wound. It was a deep cut, but it looked like it had missed anything vital. They broke their oath, Ara said, staring at the vines covering the walls. My guard! Generations of their families have protected my line. And when the moment came, they fled. Fear makes people do things they normally wouldn't, Jake offered, though he didn't really believe it himself. His code was simpler. You protect your people. You stand your ground. You don't run. Your kind fears nothing, it seems, she observed, her gaze turning analytical. You are seen as reckless and unpredictable, willing to sacrifice yourselves for ideas others would call illogical. We call it having a spine, Jake replied with a small smile. He told her about his home, about the simple code of honor that meant more to him than any order. In turn, she spoke of her empire, the politics that led to the war, and her suspicion that a faction in her own court had set up the Kresh attack to get rid of her. A bond started to form, forged in shared danger and a grudging respect, but their peace didn't last. A Vithari patrol swept through the bay, not Kresh this time, but soldiers loyal to whoever had just seized power. At the same time, a new message hit his comms, a system-wide broadcast. Warrant issued for the arrest of Sergeant Jake Morrison, deserter, for aiding an enemy combatant, dead or alive. Now, they were being hunted by both sides. They were cornered in the hangar bay, trapped between a Vithari kill squad and the closing net of Jake's former comrades. There was nowhere left to run. Below them sat a small, sleek diplomatic shuttle, their only way out. It won't power on without my command codes, Ara said, her breath catching. They will have locked me out. Then we make a stand, Jake said, checking his last magazine. 12 rounds left. But Ara shook her head. Her eyes, once clouded with pain, now held a spark of their old fire. No, you fought for me. Now let me fight for you. She closed her eyes, her hand touching a crystal on her collar. She began to speak in the Vithari language, her voice low and resonant. It wasn't a plea or a command. It was a song of authority, an ancient code woven into the citadel itself. The lights in the hangar flickered. The Vithari loyalists paused, confused. The Terran comms filled with static and shouts about technical problems. The Queen wasn't just a ruler. She was the master key to her entire world's technology. The ramp to the shuttle hissed open. Go, she urged him. Jake didn't hesitate. He scooped her up and sprinted for the ramp. Plasma bolts sizzled past them as the Vithari figured out what was happening. He bundled her inside and slammed the cockpit door just as a blast scorched the hull. They'll shoot us down before we clear the atmosphere, he grunted, strapping them in. No, they won't, Ara said. She placed her hand on the central console. The ship hummed to life, its engines glowing with impossible power. On screen, Jake watched the Citadel's massive orbital defenses pivot, not toward them, but away, creating a clear path to the stars. She hadn't just unlocked a ship. She had commanded her own fortress to let her go. They blasted into the blackness of space, leaving the war-torn planet far behind. They had survived. They had escaped. But they were fugitives. She was a queen without a throne, and he was a soldier without a home. Jake looked at the star-filled view ahead, then at the alien queen beside him. She wasn't his enemy anymore. She was his responsibility. Her empire was lost, but she was alive. His career was over, but he was free. What now? He asked. Queen Ara looked at him, a flicker of something new in her amber eyes, not just respect, but hope. Now, she said, her voice gaining strength, we show them what a betrayed queen and a rogue human soldier can do together. We get my empire back, and just like that, their real journey was only getting started. If you enjoyed this story of loyalty and defiance, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from across the galaxy. It just goes to show, in a universe that often runs on cold logic and ruthless survival, sometimes the one thing that can change everything is a single human's stubborn sense of honor. The soldier who was supposed to be her enemy became her only protector, and in doing so, he sparked a rebellion that would soon stretch far beyond one broken throne room. What would you have done in Sergeant Morrison's position? Let us know in the comments below.